What's going on, you guys? This is DerekJ Speaks, and today we are covering AEW Revolution 2024 live in Greensboro, North Carolina. 16,000 people in attendance to witness the final match of the legendary icon himself, the man they call Sting. It was back in October of 2023 when Sting announced that it would be Revolution 2024 when he would wrestle his final match. The entire build-up for this show was all around Sting going out there one final time. And in this match, for the last time, he teamed up with Darby Allin to defend the AEW tag team titles against the Young Bucks in a tornado match. And what a crazy match for Sting to go out on. This was unbelievable. Everything about this match, even before the match started, you had a bunch of legends out there. You had Ric Flair, of course, who's been at the side of Sting in this little run of his leading up to Revolution. We had Ricky Steamboat out there as the special guest timekeeper. They showed Nikita Koloff and Magnum TA sitting in the front row. I'm sure there was a few other people out there, of course, Sting's family and everything. They cut to a video package of Sting sitting in an empty theater, watching up on the screen as a bunch of old clips of himself from back in the day, from back in the 80s and 90s, and a lot of his highlights from his AEW run all showed. And then they cut to the arena where we had the appearance of Sting's two sons, one wearing Surfer Sting attire, specifically the attire Sting wore at the Great American Bash show where he won the world title, and the other son was wearing Wolfpack NWO Sting attire with the red face paint. And then out come Sting proper with the Seek and Destroy theme song, and once he hit the ring, Darby Allin shot out like a cannon out of the ropes down onto the Young Bucks, Matthew and Nicholas Jackson, the EVPs, and we were off to the races. These guys beat the ever-loving crap out of each other. Even Sting's sons got a little bit of action in this match. Of course, the two of them were attacked by the Young Bucks all those weeks ago when Sting and Darby won the titles in the first place. So they got a little bit of revenge on the Bucks here. They both hit stinger splashes on both Bucks in separate corners. And of course, the violence spilled all around ringside, through the crowd, and even up on the stage where the Bucks gained control as Nicholas hit a Falcon Arrow on Darby off of the stage down through a table. Meanwhile, on the other side, Matthew suplexed Sting off the stage down through a table on the floor. And so then the Bucks isolated Darby. He managed to fight them off, and he tried to hit a huge maneuver on Matthew, I believe, because down on the floor was a giant sheet of glass set up on a bunch of chairs. Darby climbs this ridiculously tall ladder in the ring. He dives off, attempting to hit a swanton bomb, but instead, Nick or Matt, whichever one, it doesn't matter, they moved, and then Darby crashes through the glass onto the chairs, down onto the floor. You could see his back slowly start to bleed as the wounds and the punctures and the cuts started to come through. So it was real glass. And this man, I don't get it. I don't understand why this man, Darby Allin, is the way that he is and does things like this. It made for a hell of a spot here in this match, but Jesus Christ, this was brutal. So eventually Sting came back in, and he had to fight 2-on-1 against the Bucks. He got powerbombed by Matthew through a table off of that same ladder. Sting climbed a few rungs of the ladder. Matt caught him with a powerbomb through a table, and Sting completely no-sold it, got right back up. The crowd popped huge for that. But it was only short-lived as he got double Irish whipped into the corner, crashing through yet another giant sheet of glass. Ricky Steamboat, who was on the outside, he was trying to fight off the Bucks. He got the upper hand on Nick for a little bit, but then Matt hit him with a steel chair right to the gut. Sting is laid out in the ring. Ric Flair comes in. He is covering Sting, trying to protect him. And then the Bucks both delivered a double super kick to Ric Flair, took him out. Ricky Steamboat got back on the apron. They took him out with a double super kick. Matt, I believe, gave Sting a shot to the face with one of the title belts. Went for the cover, only good for a 2 count. They kept covering Sting. They kept hitting all these big moves on him. Nothing would keep him down. They gave him a double super kick. Sting cocked his head back for a bit, but then he just stood straight upright, beat his chest, and was still fighting through all of it. The Bucks got him down, hit him with what they have now called the EVP trigger, and again, only good for a 2 count. They hit him with a second one. Sting kicks out at 1, and then he's egging them on, telling them to come at him, and then they hit him with yet another super kick. They get Sting in position for what was once known as the Meltzer driver, now known as the TK driver. They are setting him up for the move. Nicholas is up top, and then Darby Allin reappears, finally, bloody back and all. He shoves Nick off the top, and Nick crashes through a table on the floor. So then back in the ring, Sting hits a Scorpion Death Drop on Matthew, only good for a 2 count. But then, as Darby goes up, he comes off the top with a coffin drop onto Matthew, and then Sting locks him in the Scorpion Death Lock, and Matthew taps out, and Sting and Darby retain the AEW Tag Team titles. Sting has been undefeated his entire run in AEW. Every single match Sting has had in AEW, he has won all of them. And I had a feeling that if there was any match he was going to lose, he's an old school guy, he'll probably want to lose his last match. And the Bucks, they just came back. They started this EVP gimmick, really freshly christened heel douchebag gimmicks. And I figured they want to put them over. The crowd's not going to like it. This is a strongly pro-Sting crowd, so the last thing they want to see is him lose. But figured that was going to be the way it would go. But no, the Bucks, to their credit, they put over Sting. And Sting goes out as the only undefeated star in AEW. And what a way for him to go out. The match itself was absolutely insane. Craziness. Like I said, Darby Allin is an unreal person. Honestly, Sting, he didn't do anything too crazy. I mean, he got suplexed off the stage. He got powerbombed through a table. He got whipped into the sheet of glass. But he didn't do anything too crazy. No giant dives from Sting that I recall in this match. So, all things considered, it was pretty tame in comparison to some stuff that we've seen from Sting in some of his matches over the years. No balcony dives here. But what a way to go out. And of course, Sting was on the house mic after the match. They only had 3 minutes left in the pay-per-view, so he didn't say a whole lot and basically got cut off. So even as I'm recording now, for all I know, Sting is still out there in the ring cutting a promo for the live crowd. I don't know, but he deserves to get all of his flowers for as long as he wants to. These past couple of weeks, but especially these past couple of days, logging on to Twitter and all kinds of social media and seeing all the outpouring of love and respect to Sting, all the tributes for him from fans and peers alike, it's been tremendous to see. Sting has been a presence throughout my entire life. Before I was even born, Sting was already a top star in NWA, WCW for years and years. He was already a multi-time world champion by the time I was even born. So throughout my entire life as a wrestling fan, Sting has always been there, whether it was in WCW, whether it was in TNA. That's majorly where I saw a lot of him and a lot of his work through and through. in TNA, even his brief run in WWE. I know it wasn't as beloved as people would have liked for it to have been, but he got a WrestleMania match out of it, and just looking back on it in hindsight, seeing Sting being able to share a ring with people like Randy Orton, like Triple H, like even John Cena, it was a cool moment. It was really cool to see. And of course, ever since coming to AEW, this is a man who retired before. He had that match with Seth Rollins, he got banged up, and he was forced to retire before. But thankfully, through the grace of God, he was able to come back and have a whole new life for himself in AEW ever since 2021 when he wrestled that first match with Darby, that cinematic match against Team Taz. And ever since then, it's just been full on with Sting going crazy in these matches. And as we approached the show, it became more and more emotional knowing that Sting was going to be wrestling his final match. I don't have Sting ranked super high on my personal list of favorites, but he is on there. Top 10, top 15. Sting is an absolute favorite of mine. He is an incredible wrestler, one of the best on the mic. He knows how to cut a fiery, intense promo when he needs to, and it's been great. Sting has had some incredible matches that I have either gone back and seen or saw live. I mean, a lot of his big WCW matches against people like Ric Flair and Big Van Vader and Cactus Jack and stuff like that. Of course, I saw that later on. But even, like I mentioned with TNA, seeing him against people like Kurt Angle, like even Jeff Jarrett, like AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, people like that was really cool. Even in AEW, him and Darby against the Bucks, going out there against FTR and all these different combinations of people. It's been great to see Sting. And above all else, it's really, really cool to see Sting go out on his own terms. Like I said, it's unconventional for the old gunslinger, the legend, to win in his final match like that and win and retire as a champion the way that Sting did. But it was cool. And like I said, these fans wanted to see that happen. And quite frankly, I wanted to see it too. The future of the tag team titles, I'm sure they'll be put up in a tournament. I'm sure they'll be vacated or whatever. But for right now, I'm not too concerned with that. For right now, it's about Sting, and what a hell of a way for him to go out. Some great stuff there. But this match and all the stuff with Sting capped off what overall, top to bottom, was an incredible pay-per-view from AEW. AEW, I have not been overly enthusiastic about the weekly shows, about Dynamite, Collision, Rampage. The week-to-week is up and down, very inconsistent in terms of its quality. But these pay-per-views have been great. But even still, I would rank this Revolution pay-per-view as being one of the best in company history, which seems to be a pattern with a lot of the Revolution pay-per-views. When I think back in the history of AEW, I think back to a lot of these Revolution shows, and they tend to be very much standouts. And you had a lot of great matches on this card that definitely played into that. We had what will probably go down as one of the best matches of the entire year, where Konosuke Takeshita took on AEW's newest signee, Will Ospreay, in an absolutely unbelievable match. Of course, two members of the Don Callis family going at it. You had Don Callis on commentary. These two had an incredible match here. I can't even go into every single spot from this entire match. I will point out one spot that scared the crap out of me. I will point out one cool spot before that, though. There was one cool spot where there was a moment where Ospreay was going for the Os Cutter in midair, and Takeshita caught him midair and hit him with a Blue Thunder Bomb. I thought that was cool. But a little bit later on, Takeshita hit a brain buster on Ospreay on the top turnbuckle, but in doing so, Ospreay's lower back hit the top turnbuckle, and he ended up getting a contusion or a giant bruise on his lower back. That was a scary ass spot, in this match. Not the only time on this night where there was a big move on the top turnbuckle, but these two men went back and forth. Just incredible action. My words can't do it justice. I can't do a full-on play-by-play commentary of this match because for a lot of it, I was just in the moment watching it all play out, and notes were secondary for me. But in the end, it was Ospreay who hit a Tiger Driver 91, planted Takeshita on the back of his neck, and then hit him with the hidden blade and got the win. So Will Ospreay, we've seen him compete in AEW before, but now he is officially all elite. He signed the contract back in November. He finished up his obligations to New Japan, and he is full-time in AEW. And if we get matches like this from him on a consistent basis, then AEW will be in good hands with a star like Will Ospreay as one of your top men, if not the face of the company. He has that ability. He is that good in the ring. He is that charismatic. He has that strong of a personality to where I can easily buy into him as the top babyface of the entire company. And if you don't believe that, then you clearly did not watch this match, let alone his entire library of action and matches and his entire resume from New Japan and elsewhere in Britain wrestling. The dude's great, and I look forward to seeing more of him in AEW. Had a triple threat for the AEW World Championship. Samoa Joe defending against Hangman, Adam Page, and Swerve Strickland. The big story here was Hangman and Swerve were just so obsessed with each other and fighting each other and making sure one another did not win the championship that they were treating Samoa Joe almost like an afterthought. But Joe made his presence felt throughout the entire match. But you had different points where Swerve and Hangman were focusing too much on each other. And in Hangman's case, to the point where he was attacking referees. He was pulling referees out of the way so they wouldn't finish a count for Swerve. He was attacking one of the referees at one point. Hangman was absolutely losing his mind in this match. And that even played a role in the finish as Swerve hit Hangman with a JML driver. Samoa Joe came in and he basically suplexed Swerve on the back of his head and got him out of the way. And then he locked Hangman in the coquina clutch. Now in the background, you can see Swerve. He's slowly crawling his way over, trying to muster up the energy to break the cover, but Hangman taps out. Now, the story is, did Hangman tap out because he was just in that much pain in the coquina clutch and he couldn't escape, so he had no choice but to tap out? Or was he so focused on making sure Swerve did not have a chance of winning this championship that he was willing to sacrifice himself and tap out just to make sure that Swerve didn't win? You can argue what exactly was being told there. I know commentary was kind of questioning that too, so that's clearly a story that they want to tell, and we'll see how that plays out on TV going forward. I saw a few people were a little pissy and a little upset that Swerve didn't get the win here. I have no issue with Swerve not getting the win here because Joe only won the championship back in December. This was only his second defense of the title, and this was on a night where the world title match was not closing the show. Instead, those honors, rightfully so, went to the Sting match. So any chances of a title change seemed very much unlikely, in my opinion. Now, Swerve, the dude is a star. I know what I said about Will Ospreay earlier, but right there neck and neck with him, you can build up Swerve as one of your top stars on the show too. And there is a time where it will be good to crown him as the AEW World Champion. Do I think it'll be this year? I do. I do believe at some point this year, Swerve Strickland will win that championship. And I think it will be a great moment when it happens. I just don't think it's going to happen yet. And I did not think it was going to happen on this show. Hangman, definitely, I did not expect him to win the championship. But it's okay that he didn't win. And I fully expect him to get the win later on. But I'm happy that Joe gets to continue having a dominant run for himself for a little bit longer heading or coming out of this show. Elsewhere on the show, we had a bunch of other really good matches. We had the AEW Women's Championship on the line. Timeless Toni Storm defending against Deonna Purrazzo. This was a bit of a weaker match on the show, but it was still good. Just out of everything on the show, this was probably one of the weaker things on it. And Toni Storm did retain her championship over Deonna Purrazzo after interference from Mariah May and Luther, of course. We had a great showcase of excellent tag team wrestling between FTR and the Blackpool Combat Club, represented by Claudio Castagnoli and Jon Moxley. This was an incredible match throughout this entire one. BCC came out donning some Road Warrior inspired attire with the spiked shoulder pads, so I thought that was cool. And even at different points in the match, they had further Road Warrior tributes after hitting a Doomsday device on Dax Harwood. Speaking of Dax, at one point in this match, he got busted open pretty badly, and he was bleeding a little bit, which looked very brutal. I'm surprised Moxley didn't bleed, but someone did bleed in a Jon Moxley match, so that's not much of a shock there. But FTR did get the win when we had a double submission spot on both members of FTR, but Mox and Dax were the legal men, and so Dax passed out, and that gave the BCC the big win in this match. And like I said, good stuff here. We had the AEW International Championship on the line. Roderick Strong challenging Orange Cassidy. This was what I was alluding to earlier. We had a point in this match where Roddy hit a gut-wrench powerbomb on Orange Cassidy on the top turnbuckle and slammed him right onto the top, and Orange had a very hard landing, and it looked absolutely brutal for Orange Cassidy. Not a fun day at the office for him, but Roddy got the clean win in this match. He hit the end of Heartache and got the clean victory. No interference from the Undisputed Kingdom, which I thought was pretty refreshing. And after the match, he's celebrating with the championship when this random person with wild hair and a beard hops the barricade and gets into the ring, and it's Kyle O'Reilly. Kyle O'Reilly returns to AEW on this show in this post-match here. He hugs Roddy. Roddy is telling Matt Taven and Mike Bennett to give him an Undisputed Kingdom t-shirt. O'Reilly, he holds it up, he looks at it, but then he politely gives it back to Roddy, and then he whispers something in his ear, and then he leaves. So, not sure exactly what that's about, but I suspect this will ultimately lead to Kyle O'Reilly versus Roderick Strong for the International Championship, but really cool to see him back. They showed a vignette for Pac on the 0 Hour pre-show, so Pac is also going to be returning soon. And I saw Sean Ross Sapp had posted on Twitter that both Pac and Kyle O'Reilly were two names that at different points AEW thought they were never going to return, and they were never going to get those two men back, and that both men's careers were potentially over. So the fact that we got one of them back in person on this show, and the other one they showed a vignette for, so he's going to be coming back soon. I think knowing that context makes this a pretty cool moment here. So really, really cool. Speaking of the Undisputed Kingdom, though, we had another member of the Undisputed Kingdom getting a win on this show. Wardlow won the All-Star 8-man scramble match against Brian Cage, Powerhouse Hobbs, Lance Archer, Magnus from CMLL, Dante Martin, and Chris Jericho. This was a bit of a sloppy match. I would say behind the women's match, this was probably the weakest match on the show, but the fans were super into it. They were into this match consistently more than they were the women's match, even though I personally thought that that match was a better match than this one was. But a lot of crazy action, a lot of big guys in this match. So the fans were super into it. But also Hook was in this match. I forgot to mention Hook was also a part of this match. But it was Wardlow who hit the powerbomb on Dante Martin to get the win. And Wardlow, he's riding off of some momentum. He cut a really great promo on TV a few weeks ago. He had a pretty good back and forth promo exchange with Chris Jericho on Collision. And he is next in line for a future world championship match. I don't know if that's going to be a TV match or will that be a pay-per-view match for AEW's next upcoming show. They announced on this show that AEW's next time on pay-per-view will be April 21st in St. Louis, Missouri for AEW Dynasty. So might we see Samoa Joe defend his championship against Wardlow on that pay-per-view? We'll see. As far as the rest of this show is concerned, we had some other really good matches. The show opened with a great match for the TNT Championship between Christian Cage and Daniel Garcia. The fans were really into Garcia, but unfortunately, this was not his night. After a pretty good, strong opener, it was Nick Wayne interference that cost Garcia the victory, and Christian hit the kill switch to get the win. I was surely expecting an Adam Copeland run-in on this show to help Garcia get the win. I was expecting a title change in this match, and the fact that we didn't get it was pretty shocking. In fact, now that I think about it, there were no title changes on this show, which is a bit of a shock. There were certain titles that I definitely did not expect to change hands, but this was one match where, Roddy won the championship from Orange Cassidy, so there was one title change on this show. My apologies. But I was expecting one in this match too, and the fact that we didn't get it was a bit of a shocker. But I did not expect it in this other match, which was for the Continental Championship. Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson, these two had a banger of a match here. After Ospreay and Takeshita, this was easily the second best match on the show for me. And then right behind them was the BCC FTR match. Those were the top three best matches of this show. But Eddie Kingston and Bryan Danielson had an absolutely incredible match, which is not unheard of. These two have had several matches together in AEW so far, and every time they come out having an excellent match. This one just so happened to be the best one that they've had. This was incredible action between the two of them. And Eddie Kingston got the win over Bryan Danielson, and per the stipulation heading in, Bryan Danielson was forced to shake Eddie Kingston's hand and acknowledge him and show him respect. And Danielson was kind of fucking around with him at first, but ultimately he did show Eddie respect, and he shook his hand and even raised his arm. And you could tell Eddie Kingston was very emotional over it. They posted on social media, backstage in the trainer's room, Eddie Kingston talking to Bryan Danielson and expressing to him how much that meant to him and how much that respect means to him, and talking about how, titles come and go, but that respect is something that means a lot to him. And Danielson was, of course, himself talking about how Eddie earned his respect and all that good stuff. It was a great little promo. It's about 2 or 3 minutes. It's really good, and it really put this match into perspective and made the finish here all the more satisfying. Of course, you had a bunch of, or at least 2 pre-show matches. You had a big 12-man tag where the Bang Bang Scissor Gang won over Jeff Jarrett and his motley crew. And then Willow Nightingale and Chris Statlander beat Julia Hart and Sky Blue. That stuff is very inconsequential in the grand scheme of this overall pay-per-view. But it was said, and that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about with this show. Top to bottom, a damn good pay-per-view from AEW with at least 3 top-notch quality match of the year caliber matches. At the very least, Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita absolutely is a match of the year caliber match on this show. So Good stuff from AEW tonight. Great action. And most importantly, thank you, Sting, for an amazing, illustrious career that you've had. You've been a great presence in my life as a wrestling fan and a strong constant. And for someone who has always been there in the wrestling industry so long as I've been a fan, it's going to be weird to not see him there, like to truly not see him there going forward. I know there was a brief retirement there coming out of his WWE run, but now seeing him go out there on his own terms, in his own control, write his own ending for himself was really cool to see. And so all the respect in the world to Sting, Steve Borden, whatever you want to call him, the man called Sting, the icon. Hell of a way to go out on this show. And thank you for everything. And thank you guys for sitting down and listening to me drone on about this show for the past 30 or so minutes. And if you like what you heard and you like what you see, then hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and comment down below what you thought of the show, your thoughts on Sting, all that good stuff. And follow me on Twitter/X at DerekJ Speaks. Next time I'm coming to you guys, most likely will be for WrestleMania season, WrestleMania predictions, WrestleMania Nights 1 and Night 2 reviews, all that good stuff. So until then, check you guys later.